Moon Knight, episode 5, Asylum. So in the last episode, Steven slash Mark and Layla found Amit's tomb. They found her little idol that she was imprisoned in. But then Arthur showed up, shot Steven. Steven collapses, he dies. He ends up in the asylum. We have that whole situation where Steven and Mark are separated. They're now in two different bodies. And at the end, they came across this giant hippo. And that's where this episode starts. So the hippo is the Egyptian goddess Taweret. I hope I pronounced that right. So I was correct in my assumption that she was the Egyptian goddess of like childbirth and rebirth and stuff like that. And she basically tells Steven and Mark that they're dead and that the psychiatric hospital is the boat that they're sailing towards Duat, which is the Egyptian afterlife. And basically some humans can't comprehend, the boat and Duat, so they have their own little place that they imagine. It could be like a castle, it can be whatever. Here it's a psychiatric hospital. For some reason, she's kind of confused as well. But she basically is going to weigh their hearts on the scales of justice to determine if they can go into the field of reeds or if they have to be buried in the sand for all eternity, basically. It is pretty much hell. So she rips out both of their hearts, which is like this porcelain figure, puts it on the scales, and the scales are unbalanced. And she basically tells them, you have to get your souls, you have to get the scale balanced before we reach our destination. And because if you don't, then you're basically going to the Egyptian hell. Like you're going to be suffering for eternity. So we have this episode is basically just a bunch of flashbacks of Mark's life. And we see how he got fractured and all that stuff. So when Mark was a child, he had a brother named Randall, and they were having some kind of barbecue, and Mark convinced his brother to go spelunking, to go cave diving. And while they were cave diving, it started raining. Mark pushed his brother to keep exploring, and the cave eventually flooded, and Mark's brother drowned, and Mark was the only one who survived. And Mark's mother blames Mark for causing his brother to die. I mean, you can kind of sympathize, but at the same time, it's like, nah, that was on you. That was bad parenting. You shouldn't be letting your kids not only go cave exploring on their own, but especially when it's raining. And I mean, we do have a line where the brother Randall says, Mom told us not to explore when it's raining, and then Mark pushed his brother to keep exploring. But still, like, I don't know. If I was a parent, I wouldn't let my kids be exploring caves on their own, especially if they're like 10 years old or 11 years old. But Mark is the oldest, and it's before he was 12 because we see him having his 12th birthday later on. But yeah, so the mom blames Mark for killing his brother, for allowing his brother to die. This was also kind of interesting because usually it's the dad that's portrayed in the negative quote-unquote light. Usually it'll be the mom trying to keep the family together, and the dad's the one that's like causing issues. At least that's how it's always usually been portrayed in like modern media and stuff. So I was really surprised that the dad is actually the one trying to keep the family together, and the mom's the one who's blaming the child and being the abusive parent. I will say that the dad's pretty spineless though. I mean, we see like Mark's life where we see him celebrating his birthday, but only his dad is celebrating with him. His mom is getting drunk upstairs or something. We see a scene where Mark runs to hide into his room, and his mom goes up there and beats him with the belt. And the dad never does anything. So yeah, the dad's kind of. I was thinking, oh, okay, we're finally going to get a good dad in a Marvel story. No, I mean he wasn't terrible to Mark, but he did kind of enable his wife to be an abusive parent. He didn't do anything to stop it, and I was like, come on, dude, like you're the man of the house. You got to step up and protect your kid. I know you love your wife obviously, but you shouldn't be letting her beat on your child. and blaming him for the death of his brother. But yeah, so basically, Mark, he hides in his room, and while there, his mom's pounding on the door, telling him to open up and stuff. And then that's when Mark has his switch, and Steven is born. And the name Steven Grant is from a poster that him and his brother, from a movie that him and his brother used to love. It was like Tomb something. I forgot the name of it already. But it's basically kind of like Indiana Jones in the sense. There was an archaeologist and his sidekick, and they went and had adventures, kind of like the old classic serials from the 30s, 40s, and stuff. And that's where the name Steven Grant came from. The main character is named Steven Grant, and he has the British accent. So that's why Steven talks with the British accent. So basically, Steven was created to hide away all of his mom's abuse. And so Mark can be able to deal with it. He basically created Steven, and Steven hid all the abuse. Steven saw his mom as a good, caring woman who's still alive and stuff. And no, their mom is dead, and that was the other breaking point for Mark, was when his mom died, and he was invited to the funeral, and he didn't show up. He stands outside the building watching, and his dad sees him and motions for him to come in, and he says no, and he can't. And then he starts walking away, and he cries, and he has another breakdown. And then that's when Steven awakens again. And this is, at this point in time, is when Steven and Mark, their lives start crossing together. Because at first, Steven was only used as a child to deal with all of Mark's situations with his mom. But as soon as Mark leaves his mom, like when he gets old enough and he's able to leave the family, he doesn't need Steven anymore. But then when his mom dies, he has another break, and that's when Steven comes back and their lives start intersecting, and Steven starts having the blackouts where he wakes up in different locations, is because Mark is there. We also see how he became Moon Knight, where we see him, he was in the military. I think it said he went AWOL, so he was fired, or he was let go. He was discharged. He ended up becoming a mercenary under one of his old COs, and they had a job where they were going to raid this tomb, and they were archaeologists there, and the plan changed, where his boss said, we got to kill everyone here, like we can't have any witnesses. And Mark refused, and he actually tried to protect Layla's father and her, his people, his co-workers and stuff. And so Mark was shot and fatally wounded and dragged himself towards the tomb, which happened to be the tomb of Khonshu, and Khonshu makes the deal. And we see that Khonshu basically also manipulated Mark. He pretty much didn't really give Mark a choice in the matter of, I mean, he did offer him a choice, like, become one of my people, but it's like, either become my avatar or die. So Mark didn't really have a choice. It was kind of like it was forced on him. But yeah, so we have all this situation happening. Eventually, Steven discovers the truth. He discovers that he's not real, that Mark is the real one, and Mark created Steven. And then they go outside onto the boat, and that's when they see that a bunch of souls are falling from the sky and landing in the sand pits, in the hell, basically. And the hippopotamus, whose name I cannot pronounce, explains that someone is already judging the souls before they can have their hearts weighed on the scale. And that's when Mark and Steven realize that this is all Arthur's doing. He basically somehow got his hands on Amit's figure, and now he's basically judging all of these people. He's prejudging them before they've committed any crimes, before their hearts can be weighed on the scales. And they realize we have to go back. So Towlett basically turns the boat around and heads it towards the gates of Osiris, so that they can try to get back into the real world and stop Arthur and Amit. And along the way, the scales are still unbalanced. They're still trying to balance the scales, and then that's when we get the flashbacks, and more of the flashbacks, which I've already explained. And then eventually, they reach their destination, but the scale is still not balanced, and the souls of all the people that Mark killed while he was a mercenary and stuff. No, while he was a avatar of Concha, all the people he punished. They come out of the sand pits and they grab Mark and they try to drag him off the boat into the sand pits. And that's when Steven finally becomes tough. He finally gains a backbone. He realizes, you know what, if I'm a part of you, then that means that I should be able to do all the things you do, because it's still the same body, and even though it's our minds are fractured, I'm still technically you. So Steven basically embraces his inner Mark and starts beating the crap out of all of these souls that Mark has punished. See, here's the thing. I've seen some people were like really upset with Mark. They not Mark, with Steven. They saw him as a really weak protagonist. They don't like the fact that he was portrayed as really wimpy and stuff like that. And I shared some sentiments. I wish he had a little bit of a backbone and wasn't too much of a pushover. But I even said I understood why they were doing that. They kind of emphasize his weakness so that they can show the difference between him and Mark. So we can visually see that Mark is the tough, badass soldier, and Steven is the complete opposite of him. So that's why they kind of went a little bit overboard with that, but I understood why they did that. And I understood that eventually that would have to change. Like his character arc would have to be that he starts developing more of a backbone, going more on adventures, basically started becoming more and more like Mark. And then Mark will start becoming more and more like Steven. Not in the sense of being weak, but in the sense of like being more understanding and stuff. So I knew that was going to happen, and that's what happens here. Steven embraces his inner Mark. He starts fighting off the souls, and eventually one of the souls grabs Mark, is about to pull him off when Steven goes and basically sacrifices himself. He goes and he tackles the soul off the boat. He falls off the boats into the sand pits. Mark sees this. He tries to stop the boats, but he can't. Steven tries to, get up and get back onto the boat, but he slowly starts turning into stone, or I guess starts turning into a sand rock. He basically just starts becoming petrified. And I don't mean that in an emotional sense. I mean that in the physical sense. He becomes petrified. He starts turning into like a stone or something. And he turns into sand and he kind of disappears. And with Steven, quote unquote, dead, the scales are finally balanced. And Mark finds himself in the field of reeds. And that's how it ends. So yeah, I enjoyed this episode. It was kind of interesting. Not my favorite of the episodes, but I do like the whole, I don't know, the whole multiple personality and stuff aspect, even though they didn't necessarily get it right. I mean, it's Hollywood. They have to Hollywoodize the dissociative personality disorder. Oh, dissociative identity disorder, I should say. I do enjoy that. I've always enjoyed stories like that, like Fight Club and things like that. Just, Memento, where Memento didn't really have split personality. That was just more of a memory thing. But I like the whole, like, memory, what's real, what's not, who's real, who's not, who's an aspect, who was created. Like, that whole thing was kind of cool. I kind of like to see all that. I am kind of bummed out that we didn't see Jake. I was assuming that we were going to see Jake Lockley. My whole theory as I was watching this was the scales are unbalanced because there's Tarowitz, the hippopotamus, even says that it feels like there's something missing. And here I thought, oh, they're missing the third heart. They're missing Jake's heart to make the scales balanced. But no, it turns out that what they were missing was the memories that Steven didn't have. And once Steven had the memories and he died, then the scales became balanced. So I'm like, okay, well, there's one more episode to go. Are we going to get Jake there, or are we just going to completely ignore Jake? And if we completely ignore Jake, then what was the whole point of showing the sarcophagus in the previous episode? Like, that whole sarcophagus thing was kind of hinting that there's Jake. We even have moments where Mark was like, Steven, what did you do? And then Steven's like, I didn't do anything. It wasn't me, with the dead bodies. Kind of hinting that Jake was the one that switched with Marc and Steven, and he's the one that killed the people in Egypt. Is that what we're gonna get in the final episode? I felt like this would have been the perfect episode to introduce Jake, but they never did. So that's gonna be interesting to see how they're gonna wrap this all up in one more episode. But yeah, it was interesting. I liked it so far. I've been enjoying this. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they stick the landing, because we only got one episode left. So I guess we'll see how that one goes. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Sorry it took me so long to put this up, but real life has been kind of hectic and I just haven't had time to review this. I haven't even had time to watch this episode till just now. So I might do 2 episodes today. I might do episode 5 and then episode 6, because episode 6 is out right now. So as soon as I'm done with this recording, I'm going to go watch episode 6 and do a review for that. So expect that soon. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed. Hope to see you next time. Later.